Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to NEWSROOM. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is Monday, the 13th of December 2021, and the year is very quickly coming to an end. Nevertheless, we have a lot of stuff to discuss with you today. Our leading segment concerns the relationship between the United States of America and Pakistan. Now, the US House of Representatives has dropped all the references to Pakistan from a bill that was known as the US National Defense Act for 2022, and Pakistan had been placed in that bill. Nevertheless, after most probably the arrival of 4 senators from the United States of America, there has been a change as far as this bill is concerned, and this seems like a very positive development as far as the tangent of relationship between the US and Pakistan is concerned. This is going to be our leading segment of the day. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the pandemic, that is COVID-19, and the economy of it all. As per the World Health Organization, more than 500 million or 500 million people globally have been pushed into extreme poverty last year as they paid for the health costs out of their own pockets during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. This has been stated by a report of the World Health Organization. At the same time, you know that the first case of Omicron has also been confirmed in Karachi by the National Institute of Health. Economy and pandemics are somehow intertwined, and this is going to be our second story of the day. Our third story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns Pakistan's exports that have witnessed the fastest growth rate during November 2021 in the South Asian region. This was tweeted by the advisor to the Prime Minister for Commerce and Investment, Abdul Razak Daud. He said that Pakistan's exports had grown by 33.5% in November this year as compared to the same period in the previous year. Then, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about India, where in Haryana, the Chief Minister M.L. Khattar has said the Muslims should only pray in their homes or at designated places, but not at open places. The attitude as far as the right-wing BJP's government towards the minorities, whether it concerns Muslims or Christians, is becoming more and more apparent. Then, ladies and gentlemen, we will finally be talking about the United States of America, where the US President Joe Biden has declared a major federal disaster in Kentucky, releasing more aid to the hard-hit state. A swarm of deadly tornadoes has ripped across the country's central region, and of course, we do condole with all those who have lost their lives, because there have been a certain number that have, and there's a loss of property as well, and many have been injured. Let's begin with our first segment, ladies and gentlemen, and that concerns the relationship between the United States of America and Pakistan. 4 senators recently visited Pakistan, and after their visit, apparently there has been a change which has been confirmed, this change that Pakistan is no longer present in a bill that the US House of Representatives had put. All references to Pakistan have been dropped by the US. Is it a positive development or not? More in the following report.
Pakistan's relationship with the US is one of the most significant engagement with a foreign government, and apparently the other side is also cognizant of this reality. Owing to various instances of convergence and divergence of strategic interests, the relationship was tested very hard since its inception, but the Afghan war proved to be the most strenuous test. While recognizing that US-Pakistan cooperation is more necessary today than ever before against the backdrop of Afghanistan crisis, a US Senate delegation visited Pakistan, which included Senators Angus King, Richard Burr, John Cornyn, and Benjamin Satz, met Prime Minister Imran Khan, and registered the desire to maintain broad-based friendly relations with Pakistan. Acknowledging Pakistan as an indispensable regional actor, the Biden administration invited Islamabad to its first ever democracy summit held in Washington, D.C. on the 9th and 10th of December. An influential Washington think tank, Brookings Institution, noted that Pakistan's improved democracy score and U.S. desire to balance India's inclusion with an aspiring regional democratic rival were the main reasons for inviting Pakistan. Another significant development surfaced as the U.S. House of Representatives has dropped all negative references to Pakistan from a bill that sought to scapegoat the country for allegedly enabling the Taliban to capture Kabul in lightning blitz. As the two erstwhile strategic allies seek to mend ties, both sides have to tap opportunities for more alignment and convergence in regional and global goals.
And to talk more about that, we've been joined by Dr. Munawar Hussain. He's a foreign affairs expert. Dr. Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Dr. Saab, how come Pakistan's name and all reference to Pakistan are removed from this bill? Is it A, anything related to the visit of the 4 senators? B, is there some kind of a tacit understanding that the US and Pakistan have reached upon, due to which all references related to Pakistan have been removed?
Omar Saab, look, in social sciences, especially when we are dealing with other countries, always there is conflation of causes. I think no doubt in it that senators have played a very important role, because gap of communication always generate misperception. And the communication has eroded that misperception, and there was a chance to understand each other. But beside this, Pakistan's strategic position, its population, its military, its significance role in South Asia, especially in the case of Afghanistan, the China factor, because at this time the relationship between US and China is at the boiling point. And I mean, Pakistan is a country that can facilitate both the nations to cool down in the relationship. So always there is a conflation of causes. However, this is very positive development. I mean, it is in the interest of the US, in the interest of Pakistan. Pakistan should have a cordial, broad-based relationship with the US. And therefore, senators, they have expressed their viewpoint that they want to have at least working relationship. I always say this, that Pakistan should have a strategic relationship with China, that we have, and at least working relationship with United States of America. We should have a balanced relationship with all global powers, rather putting eggs into the basket of one global power or the other.
All right. Dr. Saab, our Prime Minister also had commented some time back, in which he had said that he would never want to take sides, and in that he was of course apparently talking about China and the US, and that he would rather be that Pakistan would become a bridge between the two nations, and that is exactly what you've tried to say. Could that be a possibility of Pakistan being a negotiator between the two?
Pakistan is a middle range power, and always Pakistan played a significant role, especially in the Cold War period, you see. And we played a very positive and constructive role in 1970s between China and the US. So if we could play in the past, why not in the present time? I think if you see, though it is a negative book regarding Pakistan, Daniel Markey, but one of the factors that he identifies the significance of Pakistan, he narrates that it is the China factor. And it is Pakistan that wins the confidence of China, and Chinese have a trust on Pakistanis. So it is the Pakistan that can play a positive role. And we played, I mean, in the past, whether it is Iran or Saudi Arabia, I mean, we facilitated some extent. We could not be a part of any party in Yemen war. So, I mean, this policy has definitely increased the image, positive image of Pakistan. And being a middle range power, and in terms of influence, if there is a power in the region, that is Pakistan. So Pakistan definitely would have important role in the region and beyond.
All right. As far as Pakistan is concerned, there have been a lot of apprehensions as far as its relationship with the United States of America is concerned. There have been ups and downs, there have been accusations at various points during this relationship. Do you feel that the US understands Pakistan's perspective on different issues, including the Afghanistan issue? Because as we understand, as of now, there is the freezing of funds of Afghanistan by the United States of America, and Pakistan is trying to help Afghanistan out, but the United States apparently is not unfreezing those accounts or those that money. What needs to be done? Do you feel that Pakistan could further play a role in that?
I think, look, within US is a very liberal, but outside of US posture is always based on realism, a power-based policy. They pursue their power-based interest. And since Second World War period, the prime priority that they have given in their foreign policy is the security. And for this, they have always interventionist policy, whether it is Afghanistan or Iraq or Syria or any part of the world. So as far as Afghanistan is concerned, definitely they have certain security interest, and they have expressed it many times And now I believe that there is tacit understanding between Taliban and the US that has also facilitated the Pakistan-US relationship on the right path, you see. And therefore, I think in a near future, US is going to release certain amount of Taliban. Otherwise, I mean, it is a very serious humanitarian crisis. And if there is a crisis,
there's not an economic, it's a humanitarian crisis.
Humanitarian crisis, exactly, because it is US in the interest of US ideal interest. On humanitarian basis, US has intervened in Africa in 1990. So if there is a crisis in Afghanistan, it would have a spillover effect not only in Pakistan but other regional countries.
Let's talk of the spillover effect, Dr. Saab. You remember very well that after the Taliban captured Kabul on the 15th of August, which was also a notable date because it's the day of independence of India. Nevertheless, after that, there have been a lot of accusations from certain quarters in the United States of America as to Pakistan having enabled the Taliban. That is what was also present in this bill, and that is where they were seeking to kind of apprehend or maybe enable Pakistan as somebody who has been helping the Taliban out as far as achieving their goals in Afghanistan is concerned. Now that Pakistan's references have been removed, do you feel that also that there is a change in the understanding from those US quarters who thought that it was Pakistan behind it all?
I think it is, first of all, it is a need of the time. Pakistan is a crucial country, as I said, because their different centers of powers are emerging. And what is the target of US? US target is to rebuild its image and to convey the message to the world that still America is a very powerful country in the world. And therefore, they called this summit. I mean, this was their justification that we are calling summit on democracy. But actually, they wanted to show the world that it is in the hand of America to whom they are inviting and to whom they are excluding from the list. As far as Afghanistan war and US prompt withdrawal is concerned, it is very shocking for the US. You see, in 1950s, there was McCarthyism, and the philosophy was that America is a winning race, never defeated in wars. Teddy Roosevelt, for instance, he said, he was a president in 1901, and he said that America is a martial race and it has become a lazy nation, so it needs a war. And so is the case with Mir Scheimer, who is a neo-realist, who also believes that America has a history of winning wars. So if they are withdrawing promptly, it gave a signal to the world that America is defeated. So Americans could not digest it. So therefore, they established this
a narrative.
Regarding Pakistan or regarding Afghanistan and Taliban. Who helped Taliban? Definitely they were blaming Pakistan. They wanted to divert the attention of their people that is still America. So now the main objective and prime task of their foreign policy is to rebuild American image and to tell the world that still America is a preponderant power in the world.
Should we look forward to a positive tangent as far as the current state of affairs between the US and Pakistan is concerned? Should we look forward to more such developments, such as what we've seen, Pakistan's name or references to Pakistan being dropped from this bill?
I mean, this is a very positive development, though the sword is still looming over Pakistan in a sense that one class says that still there is a need to make a commission that would have authority to investigate who helped Taliban in the near neighbor or the distant neighbors countries. However, when we say that we need a broad-based relationship, this broad-based relationship is not only in the interest of Pakistan, but it is also in the interest of America. But what I believe that for this, Pakistan has to show social, economic and political utility for America. You see, we need to bring reforms, social reforms in Pakistan and economic
and
reforms in Pakistan.
And what are you exactly talking about when you talk of social reforms or other kind of reforms that could maybe attract the United States?
Look, we have a robust population. I mean, it could be a big market for American products. And similarly, we can render services to American industry as well.
In the IT sector, we could.
Exactly. And then garments as well. I mean, America is the biggest trading partner of Pakistan. then we can have a social contact as well. As far as economy is concerned, though I am not expert of economy, but I would say that, for instance, if we are controlling this elite capturing in Pakistan and bringing certain reforms where middle class is coming up and industrialization is booming up, so definitely it would have a positive impact on the relationship, and America would say that Pakistan is an economic, for Americans, Pakistan is beneficial for their economic interest.
All right.
Now, why they have a deep relationship, let me say one sentence only, why they have a deep relationship or a strategic relationship with India, it is not only because of China, but it is because of Indian market.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Munawar Hussain, to have joined us, to have talked to us about this relationship. And of course, we will continue our discussion and this show as well, but we have to go to a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and we are in discussion with Dr. Munawar Hussain about Pakistan-US relations and how they are changing for the positive. Of course, the latest development has been Pakistan's references being removed from a bill in which Pakistan's name had been put as far as Afghanistan and Pakistan's role in the past 20 years is concerned. Dr. Munawar, when it comes to globalization or changes that are happening around the world, do you feel that we are going to see many more changes as far as the US-China, US-Pakistan, China-Pakistan and the US relationship with the rest of the countries of the region is concerned? Or do you feel there's going to be a status quo? What has happened as far as the change in the bill, but nothing more concrete is going to happen. What's your take on that?
Omar Sahab, look, there is a change at international system level. And this has very profound impact on the behavior of states as well. Now, the world is in a transitional period from unipolarity, it is moving towards multipolarity, rather octagonal multipolarity. When I say octagonal multipolarity, it means that not only centers of powers are emerging like China, Russia, South Africa, Turkey, Brazil, but different organizations, they are also asserting their say in international politics like European Union, like ASEAN, like Shanghai, maybe in future OIC. So in that case, Pakistan like countries have a room to play, and they are not bound to be sided with one party or the other party, because there are different centers of powers. And it is in the interest of developing nations to have a balanced relationship with all powers.
That's very interesting, because my last question would be around that balanced relationship of power. Do you feel that in the coming days or years there is going to be an imbalance in power? We talk about unipolar world, then a multipolar world, a bipolar world. What are we really going to? And this is also in context with this recent democracy summit that the US invited Pakistan to, but did not invite Bangladesh or Iran to. Is it also pointing towards a new nexus of relationships that the US wants to pursue?
Very good question. I would say that, look, first of all, if we see Pakistan-US relationship, there is again changes in the nature of the relationship. We have moved from patron-client to a strange-client relationship. Pakistan has more open room to play, and on many issues we have said no to the United States of America. Many examples on CPEC, on nuclear weapon, on air bases, so on and so forth, you see. Similarly, why United States invited some countries and some not, again to convey the message to the world that, look, it is in the hand of US to whom they are inviting and to not. Apparently, Brookings Institute, they have given the report that why they have invited Pakistan, because they believe that Pakistan ranking as far as democracy is concerned, it is improving in the context of US democratic list.
Right.
And Bangladesh is going down. As far as Iranian, Russian or Chinese democracy is concerned, they do not accept it. Why? Because always they judge democracy in different parts of the world from the context of the Western culture and history. Otherwise, it is a major criticism on democracy, that democracy should be judged from the context of local culture and history. We have a different culture, we have a different historical background, so we might have a different form of democracy, not the same democracy which the West they have. So I think from that very perspective, this is the valid criticism on the US. But the major point is that America wanted to convey the message to the world that still America is the party who decides about the
many
world.
messages have been conveyed by the US, the latest being, of course, that Pakistan is no longer in that list that a lot of people thought it would be as far as the United States is concerned. Let's hope that this paves the way for a stronger and a more broad-based and a positive relationship between the two countries. Thank you very much, Dr. Munawar Hussain, to have joined us. Our second segment, ladies and gentlemen, of the day concerns COVID-19 and the economics of it all. Why do I say that? Because we know that a pandemic has wreaked havoc as far as the economic situation across the world is concerned. Now, a latest report by the World Health Organization also talks about 500 million people that have been pushed into extreme poverty because of that. More in the following report.
As the new dangerous COVID-19 variants keep on emerging, the pandemic has already disrupted global economic order, health architecture, and exacerbated poverty, suffering, inequality, and misery. In a world marred by inequality, the pandemic triggered the worst economic crisis since the 1930s, making it even more difficult for the masses to afford healthcare. According to the World Health Organization and the World Bank, more than 500 million people worldwide were pushed into extreme poverty last year, owing to staggering health costs during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom emphasized that all governments must immediately resume and accelerate efforts to ensure that every citizen of theirs can access health services without fear of the financial consequences. Underlining the gravity of the situation, the UNICEF's Executive Director, Henrietta Fore, noted that widespread impact of COVID-19 continues to deepen, increasing poverty, entrenching inequality, and threatening the rights of children. Hopes for sustainable gains against pandemic have been shattered by policies of developed world who continue to hoard vaccines instead of donating on large scale, whereby just 7% of people in Africa are fully vaccinated and rich countries are opting for booster shots. The new contagious variant Omicron is ripping the world, which depicts the future pandemics could be even more lethal than COVID-19. So lessons learned from the outbreak must not be squandered, and the world should ensure it's prepared for the next viral onslaught. Moreover, as the fallout from the novel coronavirus pandemic is pushing millions into unemployment and poverty, it's high time to forge bipartisan global consensus to pool the resources and rescue the humanity from precipice.
To talk about the whole range of economy that is related to the pandemic, we've been joined by Usman Chohan, who is a political economist from CAS. Usman, thank you very much to have joined us. When we talk of economy and we talk of COVID-19 or such pandemics in the same breath, how related are in your point of view are they, and how has a pandemic contributed to the economic disasters that the world has being subjugated to?
It is such a fantastic and broad-based question. Thank you for asking it. Fundamentally, pandemics are a twofold crisis. There is the public health risk, people dying, which is the lives element, but then there is the economic damage, which is the livelihoods element. Because of this, there's actually a lot of contention sometimes in governments on whether to shut down things to protect lives or keep everything open to protect all livelihoods. And most countries try to find a mean between them, but often they don't succeed because we just don't learn from history. However, Pakistan was very successful in this COVID-19 pandemic because it took a targeted lockdown, what we call smart lockdown locally approach, which closed off specific sectors but kept the overall economy going. And so we are a good example of what can be done in such difficult circumstances. Now, in terms of recovery, after, as you suggested in your question, you think of a V-shaped recovery as bouncing back quickly. Then you have a U-shaped one that is slow. But in fact, what many economists now talk about is a K-shaped recovery. So you have inequality in how things are turning out post-pandemic. Some countries or some societies or some segments of societies are doing better than others. And so inequality is a far starker element in economics post-pandemic than it was
Usman,
before.
You said some countries are doing better than others as far as their economic situation is concerned. Pakistan is of course a case in point. Nevertheless, what are the factors that have contributed to certain countries having an advantage over others?
There are some structural factors, which is good luck, your kismet, and then there are policy decisions, which are targeted decisions by governments and civil society to work together. On the structural side, Pakistan had many advantages. We have a young population, which is less affected by COVID, for example. We have a low obesity rate. We have a low urban density in that we don't have many high rises and stuff. Most of us have had the BCG vaccine, which is supposed to give you an advantage in vaccination prior to the vaccines coming out. So in 2020, that was important. And so there's many things that we had before, but then in terms of policy measures, the first important thing that I think we did, and this is coming out in a paper next year, is that we had a centralization of decision making in the NCOC, which was civil military power and expertise driven by World Health Organization, field data from the ground, data-driven, serious scientific basis of tackling it via the NCOC down. And second is that you use your rural support program, which was actually intended for polio, and you realign this instrument to help in the rural areas to promote, good practices as well as point out the dangers to a generally illiterate population in rural areas. In addition, we put a $5 billion equivalent or 5% of GDP equivalent a GDP stimulus which was entirely pro-poor. It was not like funding corporations like some countries have done. It really went through the previous income support program structures to help the most affected or the most disempowered in society. And there's another, it's a very long list of good things we've done. I can keep going if you want.
It's good to hear good things, Usman, to be very frank.
Absolutely. We deserve the credit as a country, and the government has done an outstanding job.
All right. Now, Usman, also, when we talk of 500 million people who have had to pay from their own pockets as far as their health issues are concerned, especially in the wake of the pandemic, aren't there a lot of countries in the West that have a social security system that pays for the medical bills of their citizens? Is it only the countries that do not have a stable social security apparatus or a system that have their citizens that have gone into extreme poverty?
Well, this is a very interesting point. So if you look at let's say the four most affected countries, let's say late 2020, where things are bad and vaccines were not everywhere, the United States does not have a universal healthcare system. It's very unequal, and affordable access to medicines are a problem. So you're right. India also doesn't have it, even though they're trying to do things like Aadhaar, but it doesn't work, or hasn't worked yet. However, Russia had a Soviet Union era system which was quite good. I mean, the first universal healthcare system was actually pioneered by Lenin in the early 20th century. And then Brazil, which was also devastated by this, does have what's called a Sistema Universal de Saúde, so the universal health system. And that is actually quite good for a developing country. So I don't think that universal access itself does it. A lot of other factors come into play, but it certainly helps. Pakistan doesn't have it, and yet we did very well.
All right. Now, Usman, now that we have the new variant, Omicron, whose first case has been detected by the National Institute of Health, that has been confirmed. And we are, of course, going to see more cases in the coming days, because if there's one, there must be definitely more. Omicron, everybody says, is the most virulent of the variants, and then there are going to be more, and a lot of people say that this whole spate of variants is going to continue over the next coming years. When we talk of economy and a country like Pakistan, should we go on the same pace, and should we continue to follow the SOPs? Because a lot of people say, oh, it's the end, there are going to be no more variants. A lot of people are very afraid of the coming variants. How should Pakistan move forward economically so as to balance itself out?
Yes, well, I think the stance that we have taken of moderation is the best stance. What that means is that we should not be hook, line, and sinker closing everything, and at the same time, we should never take variants lightly. From what the immediate data we're getting on Omicron, it seems like it's not so, it is very virulent, yes, but the death rates aren't as bad as you would think, and that's because many people have been vaccinated here and overseas. So perhaps we are getting around to it. There's the question of booster shots, but the science behind booster shots is not entirely confirmed, so I won't take a stance on that. But the fact is that Pakistan's moderation in terms of balancing lives and livelihoods is extremely important, because sweeping statements or sweeping measures that some countries take, like we saw in neighboring India, these are terrible for society, because not only were they extremely strict, but they also didn't prevent the virus, so they lost on both fronts, and we succeeded on both terms, lives and livelihoods.
All right. When you talk of lives and livelihood, and of course, looking at COVID-19, which shows no signs of dissipating in the near future, at least we don't know about the long future. Nevertheless, economically, in a country like Pakistan, like in other countries of this region, where there is a huge percentage that does not believe in getting itself vaccinated, and then we have to work around our economy as well. There is a low income wages. There are those who earn who are daily wages as well. What should be the mechanism that countries like Pakistan and others in the region need to follow so that their economy are not shut down in the near future?
It's an excellent question. There's a mechanism which I would argue at the national level and then a mechanism at the international level. At the national level, we should continue with this oversight and field data and selective addressal of problems through the National Coordination Cell, the NCOC, and that's fine. And we should prioritize the difference between lives and livelihoods, because not having a safety net is ultimately a challenge in the sense that you do need to keep employment going. So unless it is something as benign as the common cold, it does get serious when there is something as contagious or as dangerous as respiratory viruses. So it is a serious thing. People not taking the virus seriously or thinking that this is a fiction, they are ultimately a danger to society. But in Pakistan, the advantage is that, for example, I have never heard any politician use this as currency for political votes. Never use the pandemic in an irresponsible manner. Neither have bureaucrats. And in other countries, by contrast, they do use it as currency for gaining votes and manipulating the voter base. We should never get into the politicization of these things. We should have a scientific basis. And the fact that we are a predominantly illiterate society, and yet we take science seriously, is probably one of the greatest ironies of the 21st century. Now, at the international level, the fact that the World Health Organization should be the steward for these things, but unfortunately is not, is the tragedy, because it is a disempowered organization. In the Trump administration, they wanted to withdraw the United States from the World Health Organization. And so I think that the international mechanism where you take out the profit motive as well and just look at the science and then get everybody on board, like you did in Ebola in 2014, like you did with river blindness in the 1970s, like you did with smallpox. A lot of 21st century successes through the World Health Organization give us case studies of how it can be done. But when you have all these companies and their profits in terms of vaccines and all these other things getting involved, capitalism can be very bad when we're trying to save human lives. And this is a good example of that.
All right. Now, final question. Usman, a lot of people say, including the WHO, this is the worst crisis. They have seen economic crisis since the 1930s. Although there have been a lot of other crises and other pandemics and other epidemics that have hit the world, nevertheless, this has been the strongest hit. Is this going to change the way economies work in the future? Are we going to see a new economic world order in the years to come?
Well, this is an outstanding question, and you could spend a lot of time debating it, but here's what I would tell a general audience. Yes, the order is changing because some countries have come on top in terms of fighting the virus, and some countries have revealed that their structures are weaker than one would think. For example, pre-pandemic, you would see that the best prepared country was the United States, by all accounts, including their CDC. But in this, it was a disaster. It was a different administration, I understand, but still, as opposed to China, for example, which is the challenger power, it is the arising economic power in the world, and they managed it very well. So you do see a bit of relative shift. India is another example where everybody seemed to have, at least in the Western pundits of economics, a lot of hopes for it to succeed, but it has been an absolute disaster. Nobody seemed to be too confident on Pakistan, but then we are a resilient people, and taking a scientific basis, we did better. But in terms of, is economy changing fundamentally in the world? Well, one thing is that you and I are talking on Skype, and remote working is a big part of the culture of many organizations now. There are efficiencies that come with that. But the other thing is now globalization, which is dependent on disease. As far back as 3,000 years ago, more connectivity also creates risks in the system like pandemics. That globalization may be slowing down or even reversed, and regionalism may be a thing in terms of like working together in smaller assortments of the world for mutual success, economic success, rather than trying to expand the dogma of everybody being connected with winners and losers. So there are
All right,
fundamental
winners
changes
and
that
losers, I think, Usman, is something that we are going to see a lot of in the coming days, a lot of new winners and a lot of new losers, especially on the economic front, because of these pandemics and the way countries or societies have handled it. Thank you very much, Usman. It's always a pleasure to talk to you because you are extremely coherent and you give a detailed analysis from all the different angles. It's a pleasure to understand and to listen to you on any topic concerning the economy. Thank you very much, Usman, to have joined us. And now let's come very quickly to our last three stories. The first story is, of course, concerns economy as well. Pakistan has beaten India, Bangladesh and the whole of South Asia as far as export growth rate for the month of November 2021 is concerned. This was tweeted by Razak Daud Saab, who is the advisor to the Prime Minister on Commerce and Investment. He said that Pakistan's exports have grown by 33.5%, which is not bad at all. In fact, it's extremely good. In November this year, as compared to the same month in the previous year, India and Bangladesh witnessed 26.5% and 31.3% growth rate. Also, earlier this month, he had revealed that the country's exports had witnessed 33% increase in November 2021 to a historic monthly high of $2.9 billion US dollars. Very good news on the economic front. Let's hope this trend continues. Next story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns India, and it concerns the open prayer ban that has been placed in Haryana by the Chief Minister M.L. Khattar, who said that Muslims should only pray in their homes or in designated places. He says that there is a row, of course, we know about with the right-wing Hindu groups that inhibited Muslims from praying at already agreed sites, and this is just a continuation of all of that. And it is also a continuation of the way India has been treating its minorities, especially the Muslims and the Christians, but particularly the Muslims. We've seen that in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. We've seen that with cow vigilantism in other parts of India, and we continue to see it now in Haryana as well. And finally, let's take you all the way to the United States of America, to Kentucky, where the death toll from tornadoes that devastated towns in that region has surpassed 100. This has been stated by the governor of the state. Democrat Andy Beshear, who's the governor of Kentucky, says that more than 80 people had been killed in the path of a tornado that was stretching at least 200 miles. He said it was the most devastating tornado event in the state's history, with at least 80 confirmed deaths. We condole with you, sir, and we condole with the US of America as far as all these deaths are concerned. When it concerns environmental tragedies, these are sometimes uncontrollable. Nevertheless, these are tragedies, and we hope that we will come out of it a stronger state. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new segments and stories that matter to us, you, and to Pakistan. Stay safe, get yourselves vaccinated, follow the SOPs. Allah Hafiz.